Coming up on Broncos weekend, the Green Bay Packers make their way to the Mile High City with the Broncos still in search of their first home win.
You know, we've got big crowd noise. Our fans are fantastic. I think that's important.
Russell Wilson and the offense are hoping for a bounce-back game, but a skilled secondary stands in the way.
The truth about our football team right now is that as tough as the season has been, there's been some really good things. There's been some really good young guys too. And now we just got to put a consistency throughout a whole game.
And on defense, PS2 and the crew look to build on their best performance of the season.
That's the standard we hold ourselves to. That's what we expect each and every week.
Plus, we'll have our matchup of the game and our interview of the week. It's all coming up next. Broncos weekend starts right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Broncos Weekend. I am Phil Milani alongside the Hall of Famer, Steve Atwater, and Super Bowl 50 champ, Ryan Harris. We are getting you ready for kickoff against the Green Bay Packers. Steve, I'm wondering, hey, a little mini bye week after that Thursday night game, a chance for the Broncos to hit the reset button.
Yeah, hopefully the guys have gotten refreshed, got a clear mind, and they'll come back a little fresher. But we got to build on what we've built up to this point. And, have we had the wins that we wanted? No, we haven't had that. But we got to go look at the film, make the corrections that we need to make, and we got to come out and be better each and every week. And the focus shouldn't be, all right, how many games can we win? It's how can we execute at a high level each and every player on that field.
Another thing about the bye week, kind of short bye week that you get with a Thursday night game is coaches have time to self-scout. Those coaches didn't go home. They stayed here trying to figure out, hey, what plays are good, what plays are bad. And so I think we're going to see a simplified game plan and an opportunity, as Steve said, to build on the good things that did happen against Kansas City and others.
What is that focus now after you do the self-scout? What do you focus on? Because to me it seems like, hey, they got 2 home games and then the actual bye week. Maybe let's just focus on just these 2 here and see if we can just get better. Don't worry about being 1-5.
I couldn't even look that far ahead. I had to look and say, what am I going to do this next play?
Yeah.
Do I have my assignment down for this next play, and can I give 110%?
That's like when I hear the guys, they say, hey, we had a great practice today. I was like, come on, man. But you're telling me it's real.
Yeah.
Hey, it's real. It's real because if you look that far ahead, it's so many things have to happen for you to get the win. Don't focus on the win. Focus on your responsibilities and you being your best self when you step on that field on Sunday.
All right, well, Sean Payton says, hey, 1-5, maybe things are a struggle right now, but he uses another team in the NFC as a good comparison for where the Broncos want to go.
There's a fine line here between a groove and a rut. And, you take a look at, I'll give you an example. Detroit, a year ago was sitting, and I watched it as a media member covering. They had a handful of tough losses. They were 1-6. I know Dan well, and, you keep fighting. There's a grit element involved, some mental toughness that's involved. And then pretty soon, here they are at the end of the season. They were in that contention. And then, here they are now as one of those teams. And so, we're kind of, in that position where it's, we're blowing up and we have to.
And what we're watching for this week is how Russell Wilson will try to bounce back from a tough outing against the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's. I know he's not happy with his performance there against the Chiefs, but sometimes every player is going to have some games that they're not happy with. But hey, back to the drawing board. I still have a lot of confidence that Russell Wilson is the quarterback that he was when he was in Seattle, and that he can have great success here. But he's back to the drawing board, just like everyone else, though.
He's had success this year already at times, multiple games, over 2 touchdowns thrown. It's just the little things in big moments that have gotten him in a couple of games. But what I loved is after the game, he talked about going back to his process and getting right and making sure that he plays better. And that's something as a veteran, he knows what he needs to do. Part of it is going to be making the checks and hot routes and reads and making sure everybody's on the same page. The other part of it is just willing your team to win even that much more. We've seen that throughout the year from Russell Wilson, but he has a little bit more he can give this team, and I think it starts against Green Bay.
Ryan, what have you been seeing from the offensive line here? Because Russ getting pressured on nearly 40% of his dropbacks. That's 8th in the NFL. He's been sacked 19 times this season.
It's been tough at times, and one of the things on the offensive line, you can't take turns having bad plays in the same drive. That's what's happened throughout the year. You add some penalties to that. I mean, it's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 15. These are tough downs to consistently show up in and try and get a first down.
And I would say going against the Kansas City Chiefs defense, their defense, you got talented guys, and with their alignment, I believe it makes it tough on offensive linemen when you line up 5, 6, 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. Talented guys who can rush the passer, who can run, it makes it much more difficult. So the offensive line has to be that much better and everybody on their P's and Q's. Otherwise, you're not going to have success against a great defense.
You see the batted pass leads to a turnover. I mean, it all kind of works together a little bit, too.
Unfortunately, and that's the good news. You can uncouple that really quickly, right? The offensive line put a whole entire drive together, no penalties, no mistakes. It's tough to do, and that's what you have to do to win in the NFL.
Well, the Packers come in with a top 10 pass defense, so another challenge this week.
They got a lot of guys, up front. I mean, I could name them all, but just they do a lot of great things, and we're going to be on our P's and Q's and be on our A game. It's always going to be a battle, week in and week out. And I think the best thing we can do together is just continue to focus on the little things.
The Packers have enjoyed elite quarterback play for 3 decades now, from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and now it's Jordan Love's turn. He'll be the focus for Justin Simmons and the Broncos defense this week. For more, here's Denver 7's Troy Rank with our matchup of the game.
When the season began in Green Bay, they had high hopes for their quarterback, but no one in Packers country is singing Crazy in Love from Beyonce these days. It's because Jordan Love is struggling. His last 3 games, 6 picks, only 2 touchdowns, and it really comes down to this. He's not throwing the ball downfield effectively at all. You see these highlights here. When he puts it in harm's way, it doesn't typically work out for him. He was 3 for 11 on passes of greater than 5 yards against the Raiders, and he's had picks when he tries to go over 20-plus yards, 6 for 26. So what am I saying? Bring Justin Simmons into play with this. Force the Packers to be one-dimensional and let Justin play center field. He's the best in the game at it still. Get him that range. Force the Packers to make chances late in this game. And here's where I see it working. You make them one-dimensional by limiting A.J. Dillon and Brooks in the run game, so it gets into the early 4th quarter, and this is where Simmons comes up with a pick that gives the Broncos a chance to either win this game, and that way he secures it, or give the offense the ball back with a game-winning drive. The defense looks much better these last 2 weeks. Jets, Chiefs, 1 for 10 in the red zone. I talked to Alex Singleton, basically Patrick Surtain, and Simmons about that. They said the communication's improved. They're not as confused. It's reflected in the results. So now we need to see a pick from Simmons, and that's how you show Green Bay no love.
Thank you very much, Troy. A lot of pressure on Jordan Love coming in. Broncos fans certainly know what that's been like, after John Elway trying to replace a legend like that, and then Peyton Manning. It's tough to fill those shoes.
Yeah, man, a lot of pressure on Jordan Love, the young quarterback. But I think he has the right mindset. Listening to some of his press conferences, watching him play, he's a young quarterback that I think is right where he should be at this time. But I think he can still have a great career for himself. He can be the quarterback of the future for this team.
The only thing that worries me is each and every game, Love has increased his urgency in decision making. And yes, it's turned into mistakes sometimes, but I'll live with that as a coach. If somebody's making a quick decision, trying to fit the ball in there, as long as that mistake doesn't keep happening, you're okay with that. I mean, Jordan Love has a lot of his game that there is a lot to love because of the way he's accurate and can really stretch the field. I think they're going to come out with some different things for the Broncos. So defensively, the Broncos have to be ready, and communication has to be at an all-time high.
And the Packers are coming off of a bye week, so they've had some extra time here to get ready for the Broncos. They're the youngest team in the NFL. They have 3 rookie tight ends, no wide receiver that's been in the league for more than 2 years. So young team on the offensive side for sure. It's time to take a quick break here. We'll have our stat of the week showing that the Broncos offense is in pretty good company, actually. And bold predictions are coming up. Stick around. We'll be right back on Broncos Weekend.
Normal route. Packers will start moving from right to left, from south to north. Packers handing the ball off for a loss, and it's picked up on the bounce on the fumble. It will be a touchdown for the Broncos on the first play. Thank you, man. Yeah. That's my first touchdown.
up. Way to pick it up. Way to pick it up.
Our memorable matchup this week, the 1984 Blizzard game versus the Packers. It's the only time a defense has scored twice on the first 2 plays from scrimmage in NFL history. Don't think that will happen this week with temps expected in the mid-70s. But to our key stat this week, the Broncos are one of 5 teams with 3 wide receivers with 200-plus receiving yards this season. Leading the way, Cortland Sutton with his 4 touchdowns, 275 yards. Jerry Jeudy missed that first game, but has 222 receiving yards, and then Marvin Mims too. His 24.6 yards per reception is second in the NFL. We are back here on Broncos Weekend. Phil Milani alongside Steve Atwater and Ryan Harris. Guys, how can the Broncos get more from that trio?
Well, it's difficult because as a wide receiver, your production isn't just based on how good you run routes, how good you can catch the ball. It's also dependent on how well the offensive line is blocking. Is your quarterback, are you a primary receiver in the route? There are a lot of different factors that go into playing well. And I don't think any of our receivers have had more than 10 targets a game. And with that number of targets, I don't know that you can be one of the leading wide receivers in the NFL. But that being said, the opportunities that you have to make the most of them. You have to catch every ball that touches your hands. You have to catch it. But I think our guys have been playing hard. I don't think there have really been enough opportunities for them to truly shine, though.
And the greatest opportunity to me that's left on the field when I watch the film is running double routes. The day and the age of the NFL where you run one route and look for the football, that's hit or miss. A lot of teams now are going to, hey, I'm going to take an inside slant. And if it's not there, now I'm going up the field, looking over my shoulder, whichever side the quarterback's on. There's a lot of opportunity there for Mims, for Jeudy, for Sutton, if they can kind of get those double moves worked into the offense.
Okay, something to watch maybe this week. Let's hear some bold predictions. Steve, let's start with you.
Oh, man, my first bold prediction, defense. I think we're going to show up. I think Nick Bonito, Jay Coop, and Baron Browning back. 3 sacks by the defense and at least 1 interception.
And I like that a lot. Hey, Nick Bonito starting to become the player of the Broncos, MVP. Amazing year he's putting together. But give me Russell Wilson for 3 touchdowns, Phil and Steve.
Nice.
I like the veteran responding against a foe in the NFC that he's used to beating up on. Give me Russell Wilson with 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah, Russell Wilson back in his Seahawks days did a lot of battling against the Packers, that's for sure. These guys talking about Nick Bonito. Of course, the Broncos have moved on from Randy Gregory, Frank Clark. The other guy that affects is Jonathan Cooper. He has 4 sacks this season, and he's with Sidney Jones inside the locker room.
Coop, this defense is coming off, their best performance so far this season. So do you guys feel like you just clicked versus the Chiefs? What do you contribute that success to?
I contribute to our preparation and good weeks of practice, honestly. I feel like our coaches have definitely been harping on just the details and finishing and stuff like that, and obviously us playing better. And I feel like each week we're getting better. We feel more comfortable in the defense, feel more comfortable with each other, playing off each other. And, I just think it's going to continue to build, and we'll continue to have success as the season keeps going.
Well, looking ahead to Sunday, what have you seen on tape from Jordan Love and this Packers offense?
Jordan Love, I feel like, is an extremely talented QB. I feel like he's kind of underrated, honestly. They have a really good running back. And obviously their tight ends that they brought in. And, they're going to try to establish this run game early. So as a defense, we have to make sure we knock that out the game and make sure he's not comfortable back there in the pocket. Make sure we collapse the pocket on him and don't let him get comfortable and get into a rhythm of throwing the ball. And I feel like we have some really good success.
Coop, you've had a nice start to the season. Already have 4 sacks. So in what ways do you feel like your game took the next step this season?
I would just say my confidence level, the confidence in being able to see the game at a faster rate than I have in previous years. And, just feeling comfortable and confident out there, believing in myself. And honestly, as long as my teammates believe in me and my defense believes in me, then I feel like there's nothing I can't do out there.
You said confidence level, with the departures of Frank Clark and Randy Gregory. What does it mean knowing that this team has confidence in you and Nick Bonito?
It means the world, honestly, and I'm just going to take it with stride. You know, I plan on being the best outside linebacker that I can be for my defense. You know, so each Sunday in and out, you know, I'm gonna keep going, and you know, guys like Baron Browning and Nick Bonito and Ronnie Perkins, you know, with the things that we have going on in this group right now, I think are really good, and we're just going to keep building and keep growing as a unit.
Good. Appreciate you always. Thanks for taking the time today.
All right, no, thank you, Sydney.
Phil, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you very much, Sydney. Let's talk more about this pass rushing unit here. We mentioned Nick Bonito having a great year, Jonathan Cooper, and maybe getting Baron Browning back too.
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence in this unit. They're young guys. Everybody's fresh. Everybody's flying around to the ball, making plays. And getting Baron Browning back is going to be a big shot in the arm, too, I think, for this entire defensive unit. With his pass rush abilities, his ability to set that edge, you know, he just brings another dimension to the game. But, hey, the interior defensive line, they're going to have to show up and do their part as well. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how many sacks, how many pressures this edge group can get this weekend.
I'm going to start by saying congrats to the coaching staff. I mean, Steve and I know if you're getting rid of some veteran players, there are reasons for that. And so not only did you get rid of some problems perhaps, but you also gave opportunity to players that have earned it. Jonathan Cooper has been balling. He's been doing it since the preseason. And his attitude, anyone who's talked to him like I have, one of the best attitudes. You can win championships with a guy like Jonathan Cooper. Nick Bonito, I will never overlook the choice he made to get better. A lot of pros don't do that. He did the hard thing and looked in the mirror and said, I have ways to improve, and he's done that in just a year. So an amazing opportunity to add Baron Browning back to that mix. The leading sack returner from last season when it's all said and done. So a tremendous opportunity, and the defensive line has been playing strong.
Jonathan Cooper probably has the best game face, too. He's got, his whole face is painted on the sideline.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, I'm a little bit scared. That's a big fact, though. Don't downplay that. Well, it's time for our final break here. When we come back, is it time you can rely on Jaleel McLaughlin every week on your fantasy team? And we'll tell you what it'll take for the Broncos to get their first home win this season. That's next on Broncos Weekend.
You don't get to continue to run the ball unless you convert on third down, unless your defense keeps in the game. We have to be better situationally so that we have the opportunity to call more runs and to continue to do those things. And then once the run is called, all 11 guys, receivers all the way down, have to do their job.
Mike McGlinchey certainly knows what it'll take to get this Broncos running game back on track. Perhaps it's a healthy dose of Jaleel McLaughlin. We go over to Sydney Jones once again with our Fantasy Focus.
Thanks, Phil, for this week's Fantasy Focus. Let's take a look at running back Jaleel McLaughlin. We've seen Jaleel take a more expanded role in recent weeks, and I think that'll only continue to grow. If you take a look back at Jaleel's recent performances, he's averaging 7.6 yards per carry over the past 3 games. In Week 4 versus the Bears, Jaleel produced 19.4 fantasy points on 7 carries for 72 yards and 3 receptions for 32 yards and a touchdown. In Week 5 versus the Jets, he had 9 carries for 68 yards and 3 receptions for 21 yards and a touchdown. And given the fact that the Packers defense ranks 28th in net rushing yards allowed per game, I think Jaleel could produce similar numbers like that this week. Right now, ESPN is projecting him to record 7 carries for 33 yards and 2 receptions for 17 yards this week versus the Packers, which would result in 8.7 points in PPR leagues. Now, he's only on 44% of rosters in ESPN leagues, so I think he's most likely available, and it's certainly worth picking him up on the waiver wire ahead of Sunday's matchup.
Thank you very much, Sydney. What's the best way for the Broncos to use Jaleel McLaughlin?
Well, he's extremely effective running between the tackles, which I didn't think that would be the case. But he's effective running in the middle. He's effective getting to the edge. He has the speed to do it all. And we've seen him catch a pass out of the backfield. You can utilize him however you like to utilize him. He's a big playmaker, and I like to see more of him. Now, obviously, Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine, they're getting the bulk of the carries, and I think that should continue because they've been very effective as well.
There's only one ball.
There's one ball. It is, yeah.
But you need to get Jaleel McLaughlin involved more. I mean, that's the only thing you can say. How do you use him more? Put him out at the slot. See if he can handle some receiver routes. I mean, what does a backfield look like with Javonte Williams and him at a different place on the field? I mean, these are the kinds of things that this offense needs to evolve to. And to Jalil's credit, that's because of the work that he's done. I mean, Steve and I have been there. A lot of rookies, they look great week 1, they look great week 2. You don't see them for the rest of the year. Jalil McLaughlin's continuing to get better. He's continuing to play with that spark and speed. They need more of them in the offense.
Yeah, and I would also say that, when Jalil McLaughlin is in the game, most defenses, they're going to use a linebacker or maybe a safety to cover him, and that can be a serious mismatch if you put him – if you have a linebacker trying to cover him in man-to-man coverage, and, hey, utilize him on running those routes. Obviously, again, the offensive line has to hold up while he's running those routes, but I think that's a great way to take advantage of his speed and his ability to catch balls out of the backfield.
He's one of 3 rookie running backs with 2 receiving touchdowns this season. So he's dynamic when he gets the ball in his hands for sure. Steve, let's get some final thoughts here.
I think as an offense, we have to get off to a fast start. I think that's of extreme importance. They got to be urgent about starting fast, putting points on the board early. And defensively, I just think we got to continue the progress we made from last week. I thought we came out and played the Kansas City Chiefs really well. I thought the secondary, I was looking at them closely, watched that film, and they did a really nice job of not being so deep, getting more involved in the run plays. I like to see that continue to progress and improve each and every week.
I think the Broncos win 27-10. I think this is a big win for the locker room, not just the team and Broncos country. They're on the verge. Steve said it. That defensive performance last week, that was good enough to beat 31 teams in the NFL last week.
Yeah.
So bring that to this weekend and establish dominance early and often on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And can we get a special teams play? Can we get a special teams play for the win? But I think this is a big one for the Broncos and a big piece, kind of a signature win for Coach Payton.
You mentioned a fast start. The Packers have been outscored 54-6 in the first half the last 3 games. So that's a big part of this thing here. And the Broncos need a home win, guys.
Yes.
They have never started 0-4 at home. Ever. So it's time here for the Broncos to do this. So
don't focus on a win. Focus on one play at a time.
One play at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Don't want to get ahead of you.
We know you're watching Broncos players. We know.
Well, that's going to do it for us, for Troy Rank and Sidney Jones, and us here at the desk, Ryan Harris, Steve Atwater. I am Phil Milani. Thank you so much for watching Broncos Weekend.